Hey everybody, welcome to Take a Break with James and Jake, the podcast where we hit pause on the chaos of life, grab a cup of coffee, and dive into real conversations about faith, life, and everything in between. So Jake, what are we talking about today?
Oh, James, good question. Today, we're going to talk about our first actual main episode. You can't do this alone. Big
what
topic.
If I want to? Oh.
It's a big topic in ministry, you know, the idea that we are kind of thrust into these positions and suddenly maybe what seems like at first where we think we're going to have a lot of help turns out to be, oh no, you're on your own doing this. Welcome.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is very prominent in youth ministry today. I've seen it a lot where just, especially small churches where they get to just everybody's like you only have a few people on staff and then all of a sudden like someone is sick and then you have to do 3 different things that you're not used to doing and it just becomes overwhelming. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you know we were talking about this the other day and thinking about topics, and so we came up with these 3. We're just going to kind of go through them. First one we wrote down: Superman doesn't exist. So James, explain that. Superman does not exist in ministry.
Oh man, well this is your topic that you came up with, but I can explain it. Yeah. So the Superman, you know, he's invincible. He can do everything and not get tired, and there's basically no weaknesses. But as youth pastors, I think we often think that we can be Superman, especially young in the leadership position, fresh out of college, something like that. You realize that I want to do everything. I want to, like my former employer said, you want to burn the candle at both ends. But in all honesty, like that just causes you to burn out and basically your kryptonite. You just eventually burn yourself out, and your kryptonite is you're exhausted, and then you don't want to do ministry anymore because of that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to describe it, I think. And two, with it comes with the like you said, Superman has kryptonite, you know, that's his weakness. And in ministry, whether it's student ministry, which would, you know, is both of our areas, but no matter what kind of ministry it is, you have that thing that becomes like if you get asked about this one thing, whether it's like, you know, hey, can you do this? Well, you know, for some guys, it's like you said, the young youth pastors coming in, sometimes it's, oh, hey, can you also do like our social media? Oh, hey, can you also like help with the soundboard? Can you help with the projection and the slides? It's if you get asked to do that one thing one more time, that's not part of your job description. The way I like to joke about it, I was actually talking to one of the guys at my church the other day. We were hanging Christmas lights in our sanctuary, which they look awesome. And it was just an idea that he had. He was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." But it's one of those things. I told him, I said, you know, this is funny because this is one of those things of like other duties as assigned. You know, our favorite line in every ministry job.
Literally every application.
When you look at the duties of the youth pastor in your job, and always at the bottom is other duties as assigned. And it's like, what does that even mean? You know, it can be literally anything. It could be hanging Christmas lights. It can be but that other duties as assigned can be a kryptonite, just because we see it begin to kind of break us down, and sometimes we don't even realize it's doing that to us. Like it becomes too late. And before we know it, we feel burnt out. Like you said,
and that's a big thing too. Is that people tend to, with leaders that I've seen in general, and from my own personal experience, is like it's hard to say no when you're starting off in ministry, because you want to be known as somebody that can be relied on, but also coming to that point where if you don't say no to something, then it's going to take another thing's place. So like we had a moment where we had a sound guy quit, and we had a slide person retire for church on Sundays. And so for a little while, like that's something I couldn't say no to. And then eventually it took the place of other things that were more important to not only what I was hired for, but also like what I was passionate for as well. It's like, I'm not a big tech guy or sound guy. Like I'll play on the worship team, but like I'm not someone that wants to learn necessarily. I'll learn the basics, but I don't really want to go in depth with like, oh, you gotta change the EQ or compression, as my friend Chris says. He always talks about compression, and I still have no idea what he's talking about. But it's like, yes, I'll nod my head and make it look like I know, but right. Yeah, that's one of the big things is that, okay, so I'm running sound, and then I was running slides, and then what was put on the back burner? Was it something in my personal life? Was it something in my ministry? Like, but between that and then like drama that happens too in ministry, it's like you can't necessarily take a break. You'd never take a break from ministry, and being able to learn how to say no, and that you aren't Superman, and then realizing that like you can lean on Jesus and like it's okay to say no. And that a thought that came to my head this Friday after I reffed a basketball game and I got yelled at real bad. I'm like, I have nothing to prove to that person. So like actually learning that you don't have to prove yourself, because if God's called you to what you're passionate about, if God's called you to your ministry, then you don't have to prove anything to anybody else.
Yeah, I think that's true too, because just it becomes kind of like walking around with a permanent chip on your shoulder a little bit. Like you said, you feel like you are always having to like, grind, and there's that like, I don't know if you've really seen a lot of it lately. I feel like it's kind of gone away a little bit, but it's evolved kind of like the grind culture of like always be grinding, like the like what is it? Some of those finance bros are like always like the part of the grind culture, and there's nothing wrong with that, totally. But there's a moment where continually saying yes and always trying to like do more and do more and do more just absolutely wears you. And you begin to not really enjoy ministry at all anymore. It just becomes a job kind of. And I think that's one of the things that is really interesting, because I've met several people, as I've was in college and then post college, that just saw ministry now as a job. It's just a way they paid the bills, which is sad, because at some point they had that genuine joy of ministry, whatever their ministry was, whether it's, again, students, worship, as a senior pastor, media, audio, whatever it is, that joy was there at one point, and then suddenly it was just gone because there was so much thrust upon them that they felt like they could never say no. And by the time they realized it was overwhelming them, it was almost too late. And so it's that idea of Superman does not exist. Like we cannot pretend to try to do this on our own. We cannot pretend that, even the most recent Superman movie, just came out recently and dealt with that idea of Superman having to do this alone. Wasn't good for him. Shout out that movie, by the way. If you still haven't seen it, go watch it, because it's actually a good DC movie. And so, but this is one of those things that really hits home for me. Because as we kind of talked about in our intros and like our bios of who we are in our first episode, we talked about the things that we've both been through. And so as we were thinking about other things we want to talk about, we wrote down, how has doing ministry alone affected your joy, health, or spiritual life in the past? And so, James, I don't know if you want to go ahead and jump into that, since that was kind of your idea or AI generated idea.
Give or take,
Yeah.
It was my idea through AI,
There
it
you
could
go.
be beneficial. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my first job out of college, like I said earlier, was, I was away from family. I was about 12 hours from home. No, that's not right. My wife was 12 hours from home and I was 6 hours from home.
There
So
you go.
we moved to a place that, we don't know anybody. So like fresh out of college, you go and you move away, and then you don't have any idea the personalities of the people you're going to be working with, or of the congregation, or anything like that. And so you're technically going into it alone. Like, you have God with you, yes, but like, you don't know anybody, so it's like, it's all for
It's you and your wife, and that's it.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I didn't realize until I was out of that situation how much I was doing alone. And that's the scary part, is that a lot of times we don't realize what we're doing until we're out of that situation, and then we look back and we're like, wow, this is horrible. Like, why did I ever fall for that stuff? Like I was at one point like 185 pounds when I was in college, and then got into a relationship, and then got married, but after going through that 1 year down in Maryland when I was working, I was like 238 pounds. And I'm like, you're talking like, I gained roughly 30 pounds while in that job. And the reason for that was because I was, it was the lack of support. So like, I was doing that ministry alone for a long time. Like, I had support systems outside of that area.
Right.
Like my parents and like I had some friends as well. I had that support system, but doing the actual ministry, it felt like, oh, I'm doing this alone. And so like, health wise, my goodness, that was rough. And through that experience of not only gaining that weight, your self image is hurt. And then through like having to quit that job it took a hit for the spiritual life as well, where okay, it felt like punches were being thrown left and right, and being able to realize that I needed to reach out to other people, because if I didn't, then I'm going to again burn out and not want to do ministry anymore. And comparing that to like right now, it's like, we're taking punches here and there right now. Like, we've been a rough couple months, but like, it's part of the process. I'm able to look back and realize that I'm not alone, and that I can have joy even in the chaos, because like, God's a part of my life, and he put people in my life to help guide me through the next steps, whether that's a ministry opportunity or another job opportunity or something like that. And you just see that continuation of like, oh, God's got me through that past trauma and that past thought of having to be Superman, and letting me know that, oh, I don't have to be Superman. I could be like the Minion movie and be one of the Minions,
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. And for me, it was, I mean, I'm sure I also gained some weight, but for me, it was, I've always kind of struggled with, some mental health, just depression. And that stems from when I was a teenager and stuff like that. But I got better in college, and I never like did like counseling or anything like that. But I did, I had a good support system around me in college, and then suddenly I went to school in Oklahoma from Texas. I couldn't find a job in Oklahoma. So when I did find a job, it was back home. And I thought that was like the best thing that could have happened is that I got a job back home. I'm gonna have my family will be there. In fact, actually, I moved back in with my parents because the job I had before that, um, I left and I didn't have any more money. Oh, I couldn't afford to live at home or anything or live anywhere else. So I had to live at home with my parents for a year, which was fine. But I had the support system I needed. But it just like I worked there for 4.5, almost 5 years. And over time, it just became very evident that I was getting worse just mentally. My depression would creep in. I've had anger issues in the past. My anger was coming back. And I was trying my best to hide it while also being asked to do like more and more and more. Even adding a second job title at one point officially. And every time it was added, I just became like worse and worse and worse. And two, I had a group of friends, and that's James and I talked about that. That's how James and I met was during that time that he was in Maryland and I was at my old church. We met through a gaming Discord, basically. And so, as I kept going, it was just one of those things of I realized I was not good, but I didn't care because I was getting paid really well. I just sacrificed kind of my own mental health for the fact that I was getting, getting paid, getting paid as a single guy. Like, and that's the thing too. Like, I'm not married, and I haven't had a ton of like long relationships, and so I was essentially alone, even though I wasn't. Like I put myself in a space where I made myself alone, kind of, and it did a wreck on my mental health. And it wasn't until probably a year after I left that past job or that I wasn't there anymore that I realized just how bad it was. I was not in a good place. And I look back at it now and I just think of like, why did I put myself through that? It wasn't worth it. I got asked to do things all the time that I was never thanked for. No one ever really appreciated anything. I got told a few times, by some people like, oh, thank you, you do a great job. But it was never by anyone that was like just randomly saying thank you. It was like my pastor and like one of the guys that was my mentor, and that was kind of it. And the kids, would tell me that they love me, which is nice, but at the same time, it was not worth just draining my mental health more and more and more. And honestly, not being there anymore was like because if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be right now mentally. Like I would probably be terrible. I would be a wreck. Like I was already a wreck after that, but I would be, man. Like it's scary to think about sometimes what I would be doing and where I would be mentally if I had not gotten out of that job.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing too, is that like the job can be something that you're so excited to do, and then you get there and you're really good for a while, and then all of a sudden it just slowly drains you, and that's what that's what Satan really wants, is that he wants you to think that things are going great, and then throws in little punches here and there and little gossip here and there, and then eventually that little bit of gossip turns into a lot, and then it gets blown out of proportion, and you end up like wanting to give up. And that's the thing too, is that I I started doing jury duty. I got summoned probably a month ago, and it was horrible because, jury duty. And being salaried, I don't get paid for it. And so it's just this extra time that gets thrown into it. And so having to go drive 40 minutes to go listen to all the horrible things that people have been doing, have done in my area, it kind of opens your eyes too to like, wow, like we are like in ministry, and like it kind of opens your eyes to like the world around you. Like we get into this mindset of it's church and church and church and church, and yes, we need outreach, so we try to outreach, and then but your thoughts and your mindset is all like, okay, on basically your church, your job, and then you kind of neglect the things that are happening around you, or you're just unaware. It's not even by being like neglectful. It's just you're unaware. Yeah. It's like, this is a 2-month long process that I'm a part of. And like, just some of the stuff between murder and abuse and some other things that I'm not going to say, that are really, really heart wrenching. It can affect your ministry, because like just being a part of those trials and seeing the world for what it actually is, it opened my eyes to realizing that, like, even though ministry sucks sometimes, and like it can be hard, like there are a lot of worse things that are happening around me that I just didn't even notice. And it's like, it's given me another passion, as well. So like, God can use these times of feeling alone to actually help us learn about ourselves and learn and lean on him more, so that we can actually be guided to what he has for us, because he has better things for us. It's crazy to think about. Like, he put in my life a book called Suffering by Paul David Tripp right at the right time. I'm like, okay, Paul David I'm reading a book on suffering while I'm seeing all this suffering, and I'm also suffering myself, and like, which will lead to our next point, unless you have something else.
Keep going.
But our next point is how vulnerability is actually a strength. And that's like the crazy thing, is that God put this book, I don't like to read very much. Like, it's usually like, a book here and there. And it's like, okay. But this has been a book that like I really can't put down, because of the fact that like the timing of it was perfect. It talks about suffering, how like our past experiences can add to the ones that we're dealing with now. Like, we could have suffered something completely different in a different area where we were at, and then take that into our new job and have something similar happen, but it being a different outcome. As in, like, not everything we see is like what we see. Our interpretation isn't always correct. And adding suffering of our adding our past suffering to what we're dealing with now, adds unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
And we don't need that.
Yeah. I think that's good. I didn't read that.
How do you see vulnerability is actually like a strength? How do you see that?
Yeah. I know for me, it's been really interesting, because something I set out from the very beginning of ministry is I said I was going to talk and relate to students the way that I wish I was. And that's not a slight on my youth pastor. My youth pastor did a great job, but at the same time, he was very, he made sure to teach us in a way that was very, like knowledgeable. Like we knew a lot of things, and he was very theological in the way he taught us, and wanting us to know these like deep deep things of Christianity and Jesus, which is good. Those things are awesome, especially as a young Christian. Those things like are a deep part still of me today. But at the same time, like, he just wasn't really vulnerable, and so I thought, okay, I want to be able to try to mix those two things together. And so from the very beginning, I was always really vulnerable with my students. I obviously do not tell them everything, because they don't need to know everything that's going on in my life. But they do know a lot. Like, they know that I am single, of course. But they also know that, like, I want to be married and I want to have kids. Like, I've had students in the past when I was in a relationship, when I started a relationship, they found out I was in a relationship. They wanted to call the girl I was dating. They wanted me to call her and like just talk to her and like, oh, this is a real person. This is a real woman that you're talking to. And so, like, yeah, exactly. They were just like, you're not just faking being in a relationship to get us off your back, are you? Like, no, like, I promise. This is like, look, I'm texting her. I was texting her earlier, right before we started. And like, that could be anybody. And so, but like, vulnerability in the sense of like opening up about my life, to a certain extent. And then, like, being vulnerable just in my own spiritual walk, especially when I was a teenager, talking to them about like, the things y'all are struggling with, I struggled with. Like, it's not like it's new. And to teenagers, they think, their struggles, they're the only person ever that has ever struggled with the thing they're going through. No, it's not. And so I find ways to, when I'm teaching, to talk about the things that I've struggled with, especially if it relates to whatever I'm talking about that morning or that night. And I do it when I, get the chances to preach in service too. Like, I've had several moments where I've gotten up and I've talked about my depression. I've talked about my anger issues in the past. I've talked about all of it. And at the end, I'll always have someone come up to me and go, thank you. And it may not be someone that struggles with that too, but I found, because a lot of the times in ministry, we're put on a pedestal, which rightly so, right? We are called to live above and to have kind of a higher standard, but that higher standard can break us if we're not careful. And that kind of goes back to the Superman thing of the second we break, we can kind of just continue to, but the more I've leaned into like, hey, I've dealt with this, and I'm not just shouting from the rooftops all of it, but I'm picking my moments of where it's appropriate. I've seen nothing but like people responding, whether it's at my church or whether, it's with meeting other pastors or in other ministry contexts, like at conferences or something like that, just being open and honest and saying, yeah, I've struggled with that too. And they're like, oh no, I've struggled with this. And they're like, dude, thank you. Like, people want to know they're not alone. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And a pastor saying, yeah, I understand what you're going through because I have also been struggling with that, or I've struggled with that in the past. It just is like but you're a pastor. What do you mean you struggled with that? You're supposed
to be perfect. Yeah,
exactly. And so, yeah, breaking down that wall of like, I am not a perfect person. I am still a sinner, just like you. Mm-hmm. Like, I struggle with things, and I think that's something that's changing a little bit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's like my father uses an experience because he's also a pastor. He said that one of the first times that he got up to preach, and he told people that he was struggling with something. Like, I don't remember what he said it was, but I had something like mental health or something like that. And another pastor came up to him and was like, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to do that because these people are looking up to you as their leader, and like, you can't struggle, because if they know you struggle, then who are they gonna look to? Like, oh well, I mean, if you think about it that way, if they know you struggle, who are they gonna look to? The only person they should look to because like I was just Jesus, you know, and that's the weird thing is that you think about like the celebrity pastors. Everybody looks up to like this. Well, not everybody, but there's a lot of people that look up to celebrity pastors, and then they're caught up in a scandal, and then all of a sudden they're heartbroken and they fall away from Christianity because their faith wasn't really in Christ. It was in the person they were listening to.
Yep.
And that's the crazy thing about it. So I'm so happy that it's actually shifting because I'm also that way. I'm like, I want to share my life stories with people because we learn through testimonies. I mean, you look at the parables in the Bible, like, oh, we learn from those. And thankfully, sometimes we don't learn from those. But if you look at the Bible, like you just the parables in general, it's like they're put there so that we learn what not to do.
Yeah.
And what to do. It's like, it's crazy to think about that. And that's why, like, one of the reasons why I do enjoy being, not necessarily enjoy, but I'm not afraid to share my stories because, so I love speaking at camps because, like, it's a whole group of students that may have never met me before and may never seen me before. And like the one camp, I remember the first time I spoke at it and, I talked about how, like what's our Goliath? What is that big, unbreakable, fearful, thing in our life that we don't think that we can conquer? Well, that we can't conquer alone. And then being like David and taking down that Goliath by believing Christ will do that. And just like that was one year I spoke there. And then the next year I come back, I had a student come up to me at one of the little campfires before campfire, where we share testimonies and stuff. And they're like, I need to talk to you. And my vulnerability during that big time speaking opportunity, like, let them know that they could come to me and be vulnerable as well. And that I won't judge them and that, like, we're on the same level. Like, it's just amazing to see how our vulnerability can actually lead students to be vulnerable and be willing to just be open and being able to take the wisdom and knowledge that we're able to give them through our experiences, through our quote unquote parables,
right,
so that they can learn from themselves. And I've seen that in my life too, where like just being vulnerable is like, oh, you're going through that too? It's like, it's always, it's not going to be easy, but once you do it, it's like, what do you have to worry about anymore? Like, it's out. And you can either choose to keep it in and be that Superman and think that you can just hold it all in, or you can tell somebody and have a support system around you.
Yeah. It for me, whenever someone says, because I've got a person and a friend in my life that every time I say something, I do this and because I think this is okay. Where's that shown in scripture? Can you give me the backup for that? So for this, as you were talking, I was just thinking, where's the biblical mandate for this, you know? And for me, the first thing I thought of was Paul in 2 Corinthians. You know, he talks about having a thorn in his flesh, the thing that he struggled with. And this is Paul. This is, you know, the dude that like was murdering followers of Christ, having a interaction with Jesus on the road to Damascus, and then tells people about Jesus and following Jesus the rest of his life, literally in prison, writing letters to the churches that he helped set up. And he talks about it, and like, I'm trying to find it real quick. It's 2 Corinthians 12. And he's going and he's talking about, you know, just all the things that is going on and his visions. And he gets to this point where he talks about the thorn in his flesh. That's a leader of the church at the time especially a leader to the Gentiles, that they saw him as like their leader in the church. And he's talking about, hey, I struggle with things. Hey,
Not you.
I'm perfect. And he even, at one point says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. That is another admission. I am not perfect. I'm just imitating Christ. So if you want to imitate anybody, don't look at the idols, don't look at the kings, everyone around you, all the false gods. Look at me as I look at Christ. And I don't understand why there's some people that will just like be so against vulnerability, especially from a pulpit. I don't understand it. We aren't perfect. We need to stop pretending to be perfect. We kill ourselves literally trying to be perfect and not living up to it. And you want to talk about mental health problem, especially among pastors. That's it right there. We strive for perfection because we feel like it's thrust upon us, and we're not perfect. We're the same as everybody else in our churches, just striving to follow Jesus more. And he's called us, a few number of us, to lead where we're at, or to lead other places.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean we're not perfect still. That just means that. Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Burst the bubble. If you're in ministry and you think that you're supposed to be perfect, you're not. We'll burst that bubble there for you. Now you can go on living a life that's a lot better. Mm-hmm. Because we are never called to be perfect. We're called to just live a life following Christ, the example he set up for us. Him knowing we're not perfect. So continually telling us the things that when we do mess up, we can do this. So, yeah.
Well,
that's what
with that, and just like we're called to learn, like literally knowledge and wisdom. Like we're not called to just be stagnant. Like we're not perfect, so how do we learn to be perfect? He's like, we got to imitate Christ. And speaking on the vulnerability side of things too, I also had a scripture verse come to mind, is Genesis 50:20. It says, as for you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present outcome, that many people would be kept alive. And the Amplified Version is, as they are this day. And so, like, you think about it that way. It's like, okay, so Satan meant this thing that happened to us for evil, and we could take it as evil, or God could turn that evil for good so that we can be vulnerable with other people, that those that are dealing with a similar situation can learn from you, and they can focus on Christ where you may have not have at that time. It's like, okay, like I think about it while I'm sitting in jury duty. There's 23 of us, and I'm sitting there as like, wow, like there's a lot of like hopelessness here, but like it's weird because I know where I can go to with that hopelessness, and then I look around me and I see people that don't have any hope, like don't have any place to put their hope. And it's like, this is what it's about. Like, this is like, you don't realize how many people don't have hope in the world until you actually sit in a room with them with bad things going on. And it's like, being able to like be a witness in a hard setting like that as well. It's like, I can't just go out in the middle of the courthouse and be like, hey, if you want hope, fine, and look to Jesus. I mean, I could, but I think
you would ask people. That's probably.
I'm going to go to the basement where they have the jail cells and be like, oh, I'm in prison now. No. Yeah. But like just seeing the hopelessness, not only like that the cops have to see on a daily basis, but like the people that they have to go and deal with, like all the drugs and stuff. It's like they're trying to find that hope in drugs when there's better options, of course. So
yeah. And I want to throw this out there too. Like we both know we're not the only ones that have struggled with this. Because we've hinted that we're both in several like youth pastor groups and stuff like that, Facebook groups, and it seems like once a month minimum in one of those groups, it's almost once a week, that there's someone else posting that they just feel hopeless because they're burnt out, they've lost the joy for ministry, they don't know what to do, and every time it's just like, man. And they talk about all of these things that they do, and it essentially adds up to what we just talked about. Like it's they have like 25 different things thrust on them. Of the 25 things, only 10 of them were actually part of their job description. Everything else was just added as they kept going, and they didn't know what to do, and so they finally just cracked. And so sometimes it's them asking for prayer. Other times it's them saying, "I'm done. I'm quitting. Like I can't do this anymore." Other times it's just asking, has anyone else been in this type of situation? And almost every time you'll have people commenting saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm praying." Or like, "Yeah, I've been there." And so I just want to say this: if you're listening to this at any point and you're like, "Yeah, I've been there. I'm on the other side of that. I want to tell, other pastors my story." Let us know. Like, we don't have an email or anything set up yet. But when we do, it'll be in our description. Email us. Let us know your story. If you want to hop on and like tell other people the story, or if you're like, hey, one of y'all can read part of this if you want to, or if you just want to like, hey, I've been through this, or I'm dealing with this right now. Could y'all pray for me? We will gladly do that. Because one of the things with this podcast we want to do is like I said, we want to let other people know they're not alone in their struggle in their ministry. This is a passion for both of us of wanting to help other pastors and ministers know that, hey, you're not alone in this. Like we're here with you. We might both be younger, but at the same time, we're brothers in Christ, and we want to pray with you. We want to be there with you as you go through that.
And we're only getting older too, so
yeah.
and to add to that too is that there's a website and a Facebook group that if you are struggling and you need to find a group of pastors as well, National Network of Youth Ministers.
Yeah.
NNYM.
Yeah.
It should be a Facebook page and I believe a website. They have not only resources, but they have people in multiple different areas of the country that can show you a youth pastor group. Like as for me, I'm a part of 3 different pastor groups that meet monthly, and one of them I co-lead. And just being able to go to a setting where, we're not very big right now. We've had 16 before, but as of recently, we usually 6. But like we're able to sit around a table, eat food, generally pizza, and just be able to talk about ministry and life and give resources and pray for each other, and just being able to have that group to rely on that is going to meet every month. It gives you a freedom to be able to be more vulnerable in life as well. And that's what we need. We need vulnerability and not to overshare. Because there are chances for oversharing and you don't want to do that, but to be able to know that you're not alone, and that's we're in this together. And the thing is, there's no denominational boundaries. Like, as long as you believe in the core values of Christianity, like it's like, there's a meeting that I go, we have Mennonites and we have Wesleyan and Baptist and Assemblies of God and Nazarene, and it's just like, yeah, you have a whole bunch of different people that don't agree on everything, but yet we're in ministry together and we're all trying to see people saved. So get with a group. That's the big thing, is just if you don't have one around you, like, contact some churches in your area and see if they have youth pastors or leaders and find a day to do it. I found another church that has a youth leader that I got to reach out to this week. So that's exciting. It's exciting to be able to share life with people. That's coming from an extrovert, though. So,
well, coming from I have a friend recently that told me I'm not an introvert anymore. I'm apparently a true omnivert. And so, coming from an omnivert, I guess, but someone who is mostly introverted. Yeah. It's important to have other pastors and ministers around you that you can, bare minimum, be vulnerable with them. So that way you don't have to do that alone. You can offload some of it on each other. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Man, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're gonna awkward sign off. Shout out to AI Craig.
And be like, I'm James and I'm Jake. And thank you for taking a break, kind of something.
That's it. Yeah, totally. We'll get there eventually. We're just at the beginning, but I guess
Chris, edit this out.
Chris, edit this out. Nah, Chris, leave it in if you want. Thanks for listening, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.